One's a campy Schwarzenegger sci-fi, the other is a tepid geopolitical thriller. Total Recall. They Remade It. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of They Remade It. I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
We're back at it after our little Thanksgiving holiday break, just kind of doing our thing, relaxing for a little while.
That was nice. I ate some food. I didn't eat too much food. You know?
I wish I had eaten more. Not for any particular reason. I got enough to eat in the first place, but I didn't get any leftovers or anything, so, you know.
We had like a whole leftover dinner as well. It was like 2 Thanksgivings.
Oh, yeah. That's traditionally what my family does, but I went to my girlfriend's family this time around, so we didn't take anything back with us.
Oh, and they don't eat that. They eat lasagna for Thanksgiving or something.
Wait, mine? Or the girlfriend's? Or your family?
No, the girlfriend's.
Oh, yeah,
we eat turkey like Americans.
Oh, no, they had a regular dinner. Yeah, like turkey, mashed potatoes, and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah,
George Liquor.
What?
I ate decent.
Yeah.
Did you sing any jovial Thanksgiving Day tunes?
Not other than the avoiding political debates. Not really.
That's my favorite pastime.
It's like, well, I think the president is, hey, how's everybody doing tonight?
I don't care who you are or what you're about to say. I'm probably not going to agree with you.
It's like, we're some of the more opinionated people on this goddamn planet. I don't care what you're going to say. I'm going to stop you right there.
You could be far left or far right or in the middle. I don't care. I probably don't agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's just not talk about politics and have a decent meal.
Yes. On that note, talking about things that aren't political, which that's about as harsh as a segue as it goes.
As a transition into me. I watched something very political. Let's start with you.
All right, well, I have been, as movies go, not a whole bunch. I have been watching more Mystery Science Theater on YouTube, so that one's been a good consistent pastime having the background work.
The original series?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Most recently the Incredible Melting Man, which that one was hilarious. I really love the channel they have on there as well. It gives annotations explaining older jokes and everything, so that also
You mean
helps.
Every single joke?
Yeah, pretty much. Like a solid 2/3 of the jokes. All the other ones have to do with the literal movie filming choices where they're like, wow, really, progressive to film on a dark set. No props, no lighting, no actors.
God, I haven't actually seen an episode of MST3K in a very long time. I think it was probably Hercules versus the Moon Men or something like that. And that was six years ago, probably.
I mean, they've got a whole bunch on YouTube now. I mean, they have the channel itself, and then there's a whole bunch of, non-affiliated channels that have a few of the more obscure ones.
Right. I'll have to go looking for it. I know for the longest time they had a bunch of them on Netflix for download, so.
Oh, yeah.
Or not download, for streaming.
Mm-hmm. But then, I also watched, this isn't a movie, but it's a movie trailer. Saw the trailer for the, Detective Pikachu movie, and I don't care for that shit at all.
I am so excited for that movie.
I mean, in a way, I am too. But I see, what? How did we get this concept? Pokemon as an icon has been around for probably nearly 3 generations of people now, and it's been this huge hit. It's been consistent throughout the years, and this is the first foray into a live action movie of it. And do they base it off the show? Do they base it off of any of the games? Do they base it off of literally anything more down to earth that everybody knows? No. They go straight to what would be the Guardians of the Galaxy style thing, like 3 or 4 or 8 movies down the line, of having cute, lovable animal friend who can be understood by a human as a detective.
But Stuart, it is based off of a game, Detective Pikachu, for the 3DS.
Which in and of itself is only recent as well. I just don't
Yeah.
understand.
I'm excited. I know I talked about this. I don't know whether it'll be good or bad. That's judging it by the trailer. I know it looks creepy, but
My
I
God,
think
it's-
that gives it some charm for me.
I just,
Like how creative they got with some of it. But the main thing I'm excited for, even if it's a bad movie, at least I won't be bored. I don't think.
yeah, it
and
does
this
not
isn't-
seem like Pokemon is not a thing you can be bored with, no matter how hard it tries.
Right. But I mean, not only that, but not looking at it from a Pokemon fan's perspective, which when I say Pokemon fan, I haven't played since like the 4th generation of games. So,
Same.
but I'm glad that it's a live action movie of a cartoon that doesn't involve the cartoon going into the real world, because that is what any other franchise would and has done.
Yeah, good point.
And I know I think I mentioned that. We were talking about the trailer a couple of weeks ago. The 12th it was when it came out. I know I mentioned that. And I was like, well, if you look at like any of these, it doesn't even have to be the cartoon comes to the real world. It's always like a fish out of water story.
Right.
Or the whole thing about the Smurfs, they come to the real world and they're trapped here or whatever. And Alvin and the Chipmunks, they already exist in the real world, but now they're in the city, they're living in a house, they're experimenting things that they wouldn't normally do.
Right.
I don't know.
Whereas this one is like actually like fully integrated within the world it's in.
Yeah, everyone's already aware about what Pokemon are. They live with them in their normal day-to-day lives. The revelation is that someone can understand one, which is a little weird if you compare it to, say, the anime, which has a Pokemon that can talk in the form of Meowth,
Yeah.
who learned how to talk because he was like a stray Pokemon or whatever that I think he was in the rafters or the attic of some schoolhouse, and so he learned how to talk that way. So it's sort of creating its own lore as well.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you can retcon that.
It's so weird just hearing like Ken Watanabe talking about like Pokemon trainers and shit. like he is one of my favorite actors, and seeing him in that, I'm just like, why?
I'm excited. It is so weird that I am excited.
I desperately want, because it's going to be a PG-13 movie, I desperately want Ryan Reynolds' fucking Pikachu to just say fuck. Like one time. That's
what the internet has been obsessing about.
If it says that in the movie, because like I'm not a huge fan of Ryan Reynolds unless he's in a very comedic role, like in Deadpool or something. And in this case, it's a bit semi-serious. I just don't think his voice matches up very well for this character. The only way it'll make it all worth it is if he just, at some point, just yells fuck. It's gonna be hilarious if he does.
Yeah, that's what the internet's been obsessing about as well.
I figured.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's all I've been watching. I haven't seen any other. Oh wait, no, I also saw Wreck-It Ralph 2, which was amazing. And I highly
Wreck-It Ralph
recommend it.
also, or the second Wreck-It Ralph?
The second Wreck-It Ralph.
Okay.
Ralph breaks the internet, I should say.
It's called Wi-Fi, Stuart.
Whatever.
I'm way past cool, and that's why I know.
But it did genuinely like super enjoy it. I thought it was gonna be like really bad with how like overly meta it was gonna get about the internet, which it does get, but it did it also like actually in a funny way. So, and plus the message is as good as ever.
Okay. I'll buy it.
So yeah, that's what I've been watching.
All right. Do you want me to say what I've been watching, or
Go
do you want
ahead.
to skip it?
What? I mean, go right ahead. If
New
you want to skip it,
format.
you can.
New format of the show where I just don't talk
It was
at all. I just
Stuart,
decide not to.
Stuart remade it.
I personally did everything here.
Yeah.
I don't know why I made these decisions. Okay, so first I want to start off with a bit of a weird one. It is a show, but um so every now and then I go back and I view shows from my childhood or from when I was growing up that I watched that I haven't seen in a really long time. And I was thinking about this show that was on the Playhouse Disney channel
Hmm.
when that was around. It's something else now. Uh, but it was a live action show called Out of the Box. Do you know anything about this show?
It sounds vaguely familiar, but I can't tell you anything about it.
Okay. Well, I thought about it, and so I went to go look for it to watch it. What I didn't know is that apparently this show has been classified as lost media.
What?
There are 82 episodes that were ever broadcasted, and I probably saw a majority of those when they aired. There are 4 existing episodes that you can find now, and no one
Whoa.
knows where the rest of them are because they were never released professionally. It's owned by Disney, so they could or could not be in a vault somewhere. And no one
Whoa.
thus far has stepped forward with any like VHS rips or anything that they took. So there are 78 episodes of that show that are just lost to time as of
That
right now.
is amazing.
And this is a
It's
show
like
from like 1998. I didn't think that lost media happened in
that.
this day and age.
Yeah, like I can understand like the Georges Valjean like lost media, but this is some weird shit, and of such a specific show.
I know, something I remember so vividly. If you have free time, go to the Lost Media wiki, where
Oh my
which is
god.
actually where I discovered that this was lost. It's listed there, and it's like there are 4 episodes that can be found online or on released VHS tapes by Disney, and then there are some episodes that have clips online, just not the full episodes, and everything else is just listed as lost.
That's
So
really weird, man.
I know. Hopefully they're found.
I
I'm
mean,
not
yeah,
a lost media searcher, so I can't help, but
yeah.
I hope you succeed.
We don't have a whole lot of places to look for it where we are.
Right. Besides that, I'll move into actual things. So,
Hmm.
you've probably heard of this one, Black Klansman.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Mm-hmm. Uh, it was okay. Very political, obviously.
Well, yes.
It's Spike Lee.
Yeah.
Um, but it didn't really. It was kind of like a mess of things,
Right.
of formats and genres. It didn't really know what it wanted to be. In fact, the main reason that I watched it with some family members, and it's because they
Oh boy.
listed it. They listed it as a comedy above anything else.
Well, I
And
mean, from the
the
trailer, that's at least how it was portrayed.
exactly, but it is not a comedy. There are like 2 or 3 funny moments in this thing, and it's not like, oh well, there were points where we were supposed to laugh. I just didn't. No, there
Huh.
are not. It is primarily supposed to be a crime
Like
riff on
drama.
a drama, but at some points in time it does things that blaxploitation movies did in the 70s to try
Right.
and emulate that style. And then sometimes movies will have like a documentary segment at the end, especially if they're based on real life events.
Mm-hmm.
But this one had one of those, and it went on for like 5 or 6 minutes. The movie sort of jumped all over the place. It had consistent story, but sometimes the style would change. Sometimes there's one scene where the main character and a woman that he has the hots for, are walking through a park talking about blaxploitation, like black cops from the 70s in those movies, like Shaft and Superfly or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're mentioning them, the posters for the movies like fly by the screen. It's really bizarre. I
Huh.
Maybe Spike Lee does this all the time. This is the first of his movies I've ever seen. I know of the man, but I haven't watched his material. But it was very confusing.
I mean, like even still, I feel like that shouldn't justify weird choices like that.
I mean, if I like David Lynch's stuff, and he is the epitome of that. So if
Well, he is at least like. Well, yeah, no, I was about to say it's like his are at least consistently inconsistent, but even still, but if you go by individual films, it'd probably be pretty jarring.
yeah, But I get okay. The strangest bit though is probably Topher Grace was in it as the leader of the KKK,
Oh yeah.
and I don't think I've seen him in anything since that ABC show, The Muppets. He was like dating Miss Piggy, and then
Oh,
obviously before that he was on that '70s show. But
I only
that was
remember him
also
from.
strange.
I only remember him from Predators, that one recent movie.
I haven't seen
Not
that.
not the most recent, but the other one.
Okay.
Like they're on a planet that's a game reserve and shit.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
it's pretty good.
Okay. I need.
Yeah,
Where
continue.
is this? Sorry, I wrote down the other one, but I can't. Oh, okay. We Bear Bears, which is one of those recent Cartoon
Oh,
Network
yeah.
shows. I hadn't seen a single episode. I'm trying to catch up on some more recent stuff. I really like it, dude. Okay, one thing I have to say, Patton Oswalt. I know I mentioned this in our chat, our group chat.
Right. Like
That
it's
we
just
have.
everywhere.
He seems to be everywhere right now, and I'm not sure if it's just the stuff I'm watching or what, but I kind of want to stop hearing him everywhere because it's just his voice, and
His
I'm
voice
so
is
used to it right now.
His voice is a little annoying. I won't lie.
Right. It is kind of that, I think. And I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with him. It's just his voice. On the other hand, someone else I've been hearing a lot recently who's also in the We Bear Bears, in the main cast, is Bobby Moynihan, who he was on SNL for a while.
Okay.
But he's getting a lot of voiceover work right now. And I keep hearing him in things like this show, Bob's Burgers, he's Louie, I think, in the DuckTales reboot. He's doing a lot of voiceover work, and I actually do like his voice because it's fairly... I don't know, there's something about it. I don't mind hearing him everywhere, is what I'm saying. But
You've got to hear somebody.
yeah, I hope he keeps doing stuff, even though it is sort of one of those voice actors like Brad Garrett or Gilbert Gottfried that is just doing the one voice that they're known for.
That's fine. May as well.
Yeah. And lastly, I've been watching a bunch of Arby's commercials because what?
Pardon me. I don't really know what to say to that.
Okay, well, it's because I don't really watch a lot of TV, but there was a TV on the other day on cable, and an Arby's commercial came on, and the voiceover came on, started talking about the different types of sandwiches they had, and I realized that sounds like H. John Benjamin. And then it pans up, and it's his face talking about the sandwiches, and he's been in a lot of stuff, but since most recently he's been doing Archer / Bob's Burgers, that's all I hear, or all I see. And so I've been watching a bunch of Arby's commercials online, and I guess he is the current spokesperson for Arby's.
Huh.
And I think that's kind of awesome, because for the longest time, H. John Benjamin was sort of one of those underground comedy type deals. He was in the comedy circuit. He wasn't doing movies. He was in animated shows, but they were always like home movies or a small role in the Venture Brothers. It was like the weird stuff that you would see late night on Comedy Central or Adult Swim.
Right.
And now with Archer and Bob's Burgers, and I guess Arby's, he is like in the spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of makes me feel good. It's like, oh, this man who I feel like I've known my whole life, he's risen to the top. Everyone knows him. Well, maybe not him, but they definitely know his voice.
Yeah. Which, yeah.
We're Arby's. We have the meats.
I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah. I feel so glad for Mr. Benjamin.
What do you know? Well, good for him then. Well, we should probably go from that iconic voice to another particularly iconic voice and really just whole human being, and that being Schwarzenegger in, Total Recall.
The Governator. That'll never get old.
The Governator, which, little fun fact before I drop into the summary here, our show was almost going to be called Total Reboot. That was kind of our working title for a long time until we sat down and were like, okay, look, this is going to be a bit too on the nose. So let's find something else. Let's do something a bit more jovial.
And then I think we came up with 3 other titles, and this is the one that stuck. I don't even remember the other 2.
Yeah, it's like redo, remake, revision, like Veni Vidi Vici.
That's a good one. I don't remember hearing that one.
Oh, yeah. All right, so this is another hard remake this time around. So same plot, same characters. I'm not going to do it like the last time I did it and constantly go back and forth between one movie's character and actor and another movie's character and actor, because that got really confusing. So in this case, I'm just going to cite the 1990 movie's summary and then give all the differences in the 2012 version in afterwards. Just kind of give them the general rundown. Taking place in the kind of unspecified future on Earth, film opens with our main character Doug Quaid, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, awakening from a nightmare of him suffocating on Mars with an unknown woman, which we'll later learn is the woman Melina, played by Rachel Ticotin. Ticotin? I don't know. I never figured that out.
Ticotin.
Yes. After awakening, he comments about this to his wife, Lori, played by Sharon Stone, who is inquisitive but ultimately drops the issue. After which, at breakfast, Doug expresses his desire for something more in life and gives an interest in moving to Mars. But Lori adamantly says against it, citing civil unrest on the planet and its corporate ruler, Cohagen, played by Ronnie Cox, taking measures to stop such unrest. Doug then makes his way to work, on the way learning of Recall, a service that implants fake memories into the client's choosing, such as vacations and going to Mars and that sort of thing. Against his work friend's wishes and advice, Quaid goes and signs up for a secret agent memory package. However, during the implant process, Quaid suddenly loses it, stating he isn't actually Quaid. It's left unclear whether this is true or if it's just the beginning of the implanted memory. He is sedated, has his memory wiped of the entire experience, and is sent back home. Once home, he is cornered by the same friend from earlier, who attempts to restrain him with several other men for having messed with his memories. Quaid, however, fights back and kills them all with some previously unknown skills and abilities. He returns to Lori and recounts the events. Lori then calls Richter, played by Michael Ironside, and attempts to shoot Quaid. After restraining her, she explains that she isn't Quaid's wife, but an agent meant to keep him under wraps until he's needed again for some unknown purpose. Quaid escapes with Richter close behind. He is later given a case from an unknown ally that allows him to remove a tracking bug from his skull in order to keep away from Richter more easily. He is also given a message from himself in the past, explaining that his real name is Hauser, and that he had his memory wiped by Cohagen as he was switching side to the Resistance on Mars. He is then told to go to Mars and seek out someone named Melina, the woman from earlier. Upon reaching Mars, he is approached by a scientist from Recall, saying none of this is real and that he needs to take a pill that will wake him up. Lori also shows up, saying the same thing. Quaid, however, believes it to be a trick and kills both of them, being rescued by Melina along the way. This is kind of skipping over a few smaller scenes where he had met Melina up already, but it kind of drags on a little bit, so I just wanted to give a quicker route here. He is then chased further by Richter and is able to link up with the Mars Resistance, of which Melina is a member. Quaid is then brought to the Resistance later Kuatu, played by Marshall Bell, a psychic mutant that partially restores Quaid's memories. These memories reveal an ancient alien machine that can make a breathable atmosphere on Mars, which Cohagen can't allow as it would release his control of the Martian populace with his monopoly on livable space and breathable air. Just after this revelation, Richter and Cohagen arrive and kill Kuatu and most of the Resistance. After capturing Quaid, they explain that this was the plan all along, that Hauser had deliberately erased his memory in order to implant himself into the Resistance and kill Kuatu. Recall just messed up the process some. After nearly being restored to his original memory of being Hauser, Quaid escapes with Melina to the alien machine, killing Richter along the way. Cohagen attempts to stop Quaid, saying the device will actually destroy the planet. However, Quaid rejects him and blows a hole in the dome, sending Cohagen out, having him suffocate in the Martian in the Martian atmosphere. Just before being shot out himself, Quaid activates the machine, bringing air just in time to the surface so he and Melina survive, kissing in the sun before fading to black. And now for the differences with the 2012 version, is that it all takes place on Earth instead of Mars, with Mars, the location of Mars being replaced with London and Earth being replaced with Australia. And they travel back and forth between these locations as the rest of the entire world is irradiated and toxic, with a giant elevator building that goes through the center of the planet. Yeah, I don't know if that's more or less believable, but whatever. There's also a kind of general difference in the overarching plot. It's less that the entire planet is just under some specific rule and it's more, or it's like they're trying to bring back breathable air. It's more kind of this whole idea of the people of London want to invade, or this like the Cohagen of London wants to invade Australia to get more living space, and so he wants to invade with a whole big robot army for it and everything. It's kind of cumbersome. It's weird to explain. And also that Laurie kind of takes the place of Richter as well as the fake wife in this case. So she's still the number 2. So she retains to be the number 2 bad guy for alongside Cohagen. So yeah, it's
What do you know?
Yeah, pretty good. And then I should also, just so I can give people their proper due because I've been meaning to do this. The original 1990 version was directed by Paul Verhoeven. The 2012 version was directed by Len Wiseman, and the 2012 cast was Colin Farrell as Doug Quaid / Hauser, Kate Beckinsale as Laurie Quaid as the fake wife / number 2 bad guy. It's got Jessica Biel as Melina, the love interest, Bryan Cranston as Cohagen, main villain, Bokeem Woodbine as a friend of Doug who, tells him not to go to Recall in the first place. Bill Nighy, I guess, as Matthias, the leader of the Resistance, and John Cho as McLean, the tech at Recall.
So is it right to say? I think the only other thing of note that Len Wiseman has actually done is the Underworld franchise.
I want to say so.
I don't know of anything else that he's actually done.
Which is interesting considering how different it feels to this movie.
Right.
Well,
the cinematography looks almost identical.
Well, yes. But even still, there's a whole lot of overarching style that you'd think would get carried over. But no, it's a pretty straightforward movie, this one.
Mm-hmm.
Comparatively, at least.
Yeah.
Still kind of out of this world.
Never mind. I was about to say topic, but I'm not going to. I'm going to save that for the actual discussion.
Yes, of course.
Because first we got to do full circle.
Of course.
Okay, so we got 2 connections here for the 1990 Total Recall.
Really? Only 2?
And that's it. Yep.
Wow.
And they aren't even actors or directors or producers. It's kind of off the beaten path.
Wow, yeah, this is the first Schwarzenegger flick we've done, isn't it?
Yep, it sure is.
That's impressive. Though I guess he isn't in a lot of remakes.
No. He didn't even do Kindergarten Cop 2. That was... What was it? Dolph Lundgren?
Yeah.
I think. Something like that. But, so for Total Recall 1990, we have a connection to Blade Runner 1982. This being obviously that Philip K. Dick is the writer of both short stories that both of those films are based on. In the case of Blade Runner, it's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And for Total Recall, it's We Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
Philip K. Dick's a prolific guy.
Apparently so. Lots of
I gotta
short
read
stories.
I'm pretty sure I actually have a book of his short stories. I need to go back and read back over it.
I have one right here, actually. It just called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, but it actually has a few in there.
I might actually have that same book. I just don't know where it is right now.
So, the other one is between the 90 Total Recall, and the 2011 Winnie the Pooh. And
Because of course.
That just being that there was a lot of crossover in the music department.
Oh, okay.
Lots and lots in the music department, but I mean, I just found that kind of interesting, and that's it for Full Circle. That is it.
For the 1990 version, or was there any for the 2012?
There are none for the 2012. I mean, there are,
Wow.
but nothing of note. It's like, oh, this guy did visual effects, or this was a stunt driver, just stuff like that.
That
So
is impressive. Wow. Shortest one yet.
I think so. I think that might be the breaker. The first
Like
three
the first-
don't really count because we didn't do this segment for them. But
Yeah, we didn't have enough material to do it.
what were we gonna do on the first one?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
Wow. Well, thanks for listening to Full Circle, apparently. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing I want to bring up, and not much of a talking point, more so an observation. I love the fact that there are 3 Arnold Schwarzenegger films, Twins, Junior, and Last Action Hero, that all have Danny DeVito. And this film, Total Recall, has Robert Costanzo, who is Danny DeVito's fill-in for all the voiceover work that Danny DeVito doesn't want to do.
Yeah, I was gonna, like, when I first saw this, before I first saw this, I had thought that Dan DeVito was actually in it, and then I saw that guy. I was like, oh, okay, he's just a guy who looks like him.
Yeah, that's actually the man who does all of the voice work for like the Hercules games, or mainly he's Phil in all the Kingdom Hearts games, stuff like that, because he has a voice that can be compared to Danny DeVito's. You can certainly notice the difference, but
Yeah. Well,
I just thought that was interesting.
yeah, that is something.
I didn't know that he was in it. I hadn't seen either of these films going in.
I had seen the 2012 version.
Right.
I think it
So
was just on
I
HBO
wasn't
one
aware
day.
of that. And one more thing that I wanted to note, another actor I was very surprised to see in this, apparently it's one of his best known roles, but I didn't know that, having not seen it, is Roy Brocksmith in the 1990s Total Recall, who was Dr. Edgemar.
Oh,
I love that character actor. He was in... Okay, so I remember him being in Arachnophobia, I think it was. But the main role I remember him in is... He is in 3 or 4 episodes of Tales from the Crypt in just the first 2 seasons. Always as a secondary character, like as a barkeep, or... Actually, funnily enough, in the episode of Tales from the Crypt that Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote, called The Switch, he actually
wrote
plays...
one?
Yes, he did, and he appeared in the Crypt Keeper segment, too.
Huh.
To
Maybe that's where they
introduce
first met.
it. Possibly.
Or like they
But-
first met on Total Recall, so they're...
Yeah, because that was 90. Well, this was in 89.
Oh, yeah. Well, what the heck?
So it was probably around the same time that they were filming it, but he plays the Mad Doctor in the segment that Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote. So I was very familiar with him, and as soon as I saw him, I was excited. I was like, oh, it's that guy. There's something about him. Maybe it's his face or his voice, but I've always been drawn to his roles.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen him in other stuff, too, but I'd need to look it up first.
Right.
But yeah, that's impressive.
So those are sort of my actor things, just going off on a tangent a bit. Not even
gotcha.
really a tangent. We haven't started talking about much of anything, but
Yeah. It's like, well, speaking of fucking tangents, were these movies convoluted or what? Oh my
pretty well so. I mean,
gosh, they were hard to follow. The 90 version especially.
I guess that's kind of that's pretty much what they were going for. Like,
I mean-
they were going for convoluted because they didn't want you to know at any given time
Like
what
if it was real or not.
Yeah, so they had to keep playing with it, which made it seem like there were more unexplored threads than there really were.
I mean, like deliberately convoluted is still convoluted though.
Oh no, it is. I'm not making an
Yeah.
excuse for that, but
Oh
I
yeah.
don't feel like it. I don't feel like it was a byproduct. I feel like it was by design.
I'm not. I'm not as sure. Like, because I mean, I'm sure the original story wasn't too complex since it was based off a short story in the first place, and
Right.
it just seemed like adding, and no matter what, like it seemed like adding so much on this what it would seem on the surface like a pretty straightforward concept of just like resistance movements and like ancient aliens and shit. It's just like it comes out of nowhere, and it's hard to keep up after a while. And then the newer one having a lot of the 2012 version having a lot of kind of modern parallels to it of like very political like messages, which I'm sure the 90 version had one as well, but it was kind of lost beneath its own campiness. But then
Right.
with the 2012 being so kind of taking itself so seriously, it's it just got it's very hard to follow to a certain point where it's just like, look, I understand the basic action plot. Let's just go with that.
Yeah.
Like,
I That
yeah,
being said, if we're gonna call it the basic action plot, which it is,
right.
I I was really bored. I was so bored watching the 2012 Total Recall. I could not focus on it. I swear to you.
I think
I tried so hard, but it
yeah,
was every single action beat I had seen a million times before in other movies.
yeah, I kind of gotta agree on that front. Like, I think I focused on it more than I focused on the 90 version, only because of the shooting style, and I thought the style itself was a lot more cohesive feeling than in the 90 version. It's like, in Australia it was a very like somewhat stereotypical but still very well designed like kind of cyberpunk future city, and very distinct styles, which it was kind of weird how so much of it had a lot of Asian influences, even though they deliberately make a point of Asia has been blown up.
Yeah.
um and it's in Australia, which I'll get to that in a little bit. That one's a pretty big point that I'm going to talk about, but it still was really cool, and I not a whole lot of movies do that properly that aren't just like filled to the brim with CG. Like this one seemed like, if not like pretty decently sized sets, they were at least very specific ones. Like maybe they had like CG in the background, but everything was so. The whole plot of it is that there's overcrowding in the area, so a lot of it was very deliberately packed in looking. So you kept you focused on a smaller set, but it was also very well designed for its point. Which I should also say while I'm thinking about it, Quaid's apartment in the 2012 version was kick ass. like,
That's true.
like they made a point about it, like how they kind of like, oh, they're living in squalor or that sort of thing. Bullshit. That place was incredible. Like it was this interesting, like nonsense, like kind of modular style building with windows like near the floor and everything, which like I guess like yeah, maybe for space wise it's a bit inconvenient and out of the way, but otherwise it's incredibly cool.
Yeah, I will agree with you for that at least.
Yeah.
His apartment is cool looking.
It's like some kind of inconsistencies with it, and also for the fact of, oh, it's overcrowding. That place is probably the size of my entire house that I live in, and if more so, and there's less people living in their place than's living in mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It was just kind of weird.
Yeah, you were mentioning shooting style though.
Yeah,
The shooting style,
I'm not.
I'm
Well,
trying to pin
I
it
don't-
down. Sorry.
I don't necessarily mean like specifically shooting style. Like there were some differences. Like I thought, they were a bit better focused in on characters in 2012, but just the kind of overall style in general, it felt a bit more kind of consistent with itself versus the 90 version, just having that very late 80s sci-fi look of everything. Just kind of feels a little clunky. Where it's like I definitely did not think I was in this world. It was just kind of like this definitely were people playing on a set of this world. So I never really got into the suspension of disbelief.
Okay, I do see what you're saying with that, and a lot of those movies from that era especially do look like that. But
Yes.
I'm saying especially a lot.
That's fine. I
But
mean, I'm saying 90 version, 2012 version a lot. So who gives a crap?
well, that's just a byproduct of what we're doing. But
True.
what you were saying about like tighter on people, like focusing on them more, just sort of reminded me so many different things that are done in the 2012 version. Like what you were saying, the 90s version is the epitome of that style, of that era. The shooting style, the cinematography, the shots of the 2012 version are like the epitome of every action movie to come out since 2005.
Oh, it
To
definitely
pick a
is.
random year of the mid 2000s, people are talking really intensely, focus real close on their face so you can see their muscles moving. Is someone on the run? Make the camera zoom all over the place and make you nauseous.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Big
definitely is.
overhead shot during the car or rocket car chase or whatever the hell those things were.
Yeah,
It's
like I think they were like meant to be like maglevs or something.
Yeah, but it felt, to me it felt so derivative, and there were points where like you could see artistic work shine through, like different shots where okay, they were actually trying to go for something here. I kind of like that. It's not really a sweep, but that small rotation around the piano while he's playing it, stuff like that. While even if it's been done before, the way it was done, I was like, okay.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I like that shot, but I
Yeah.
don't know. It
I do see what you mean. Like if you strip away the sci-fi exterior, it really does just become a very bland action flick. But I do tend to like. I think I just ended up loving the style of the society that they had built in the 2012 version. Like the 90 version was a pretty stereotypical sci-fi-esque thing, like kind of shitty life, like cool amenities, that sort of thing. Versus this one was, it deliberately brought up the point of the entire world is out of living space now, and this is how people are living, where it has these kind of almost naturalistic looking like super blocks where people were living, like the entire concept of this, the fall, the giant elevator building that goes through the earth, while ridiculous, is still a cool visual thing. It's just, I did end up liking it a lot, just seeing how, even in London, where things are meant to be fancier and more well kept than in Australia, that they still had these massive stacked buildings and highways that had cars on the tops and the bottoms of them just to account for space. I thought it was really creative.
all right.
I think I end up forgiving a lot of the blandness simply for that, which I don't know if I forgive it enough, but I, at least visually, it's more compelling, like by
I
a
mean,
mile.
that's fair if you like. That's fair if you tend to like that stuff. I will agree that I think Earth was pretty generic in the 90s
Yeah,
version, but I do think Mars was pretty well realized. It
yeah,
was interesting to look at, and it had some of those tight. It had like tight block spaces as well.
oh
I
yeah.
mean, mainly that red light district area, which is where a lot of time is spent.
I think it definitely served itself for its own purpose, where it talked about like people have to live in these like really crappy biodomes, and so it really served itself for saving on space and keeping the sets and everything localized and more specific. I think that served itself dividends versus being on Earth, where it's like meant to be, oh, we're actually in a normal city, but we don't end up actually seeing a lot. We just see these pretty obviously small sets, but we have to account for the fact that it's actually an entire planet.
Yeah, I mean, even with it being sci-fi, since it's on Earth, there's still a bit more, I guess, relatability to it that they're trying to go for. Like this is not the foreign place. It's in the future, but Mars is really where you're looking, or what you're looking for. That's sort of the foreign area of
Yeah.
the film. So I feel like even with it being futuristic looking, they still tried to keep some of the designs consistent with other futuristic settings, just because like this is futuristic Earth. You're familiar with that concept, so this is it.
Right.
This is sort of the I, I can't think of the proper term for it, but it's sort of like
Kind of the
stasis.
baseline.
Yeah, that's the baseline test.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, I kind of feel. I feel yeah.
Something that I did want to mention though,
Yeah.
I didn't write down his name. Oops, my bad. But the composer for the 2012 Total Recall.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to that music, and it was mainly during that chase, that rocket car whatever chase on the bridge.
Yeah.
I was listening to the music, and another thing hit me. Feel free to disagree or to voice anything, but it was like, this is just like the soundtrack to so many other films that I have seen before. And I looked into the other films that he's made, and it's not all action sci-fi. There's other stuff in there, but there's a lot of action sci-fi films that he's composed for, and I'm like, this movie sounds like all of those other movies.
Yeah, it
This
does.
is like a standard bum 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 ba da 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 or whatever.
No,
that
I understand 100%. Yeah. It just it really just isn't like, it's hard to call it a sci-fi in a lot of ways. It's like I said before, it's all the visual stuff that makes it the sci-fi. Otherwise, it is hard, just modern action flick, which just does not do itself any favors.
Right. If I'm being honest, the more action movies I see, especially doing this show, where I think we've covered maybe 2 that could be classified as hard action before this, but the more and more of them I watch, I think action might be my least favorite genre. I really do.
Of course. It's literally, it's in the title. It's just action. It just means a thing is happening. It's like, if I'm watching a movie, it damn well better having a thing happen. if we have to, if that's the bare minimum you have to have for a movie.
I am like dead serious about this too. I'm getting legitimately pissed off at all these action movies I'm watching. I think that romantic comedies might be higher on my list of things that I'd watch. I think country music videos would be higher on my list of things that I would watch.
Fucking scathing review by Jacob.
I am just sick of
so
it.
you wouldn't consider the 90 version a hard action?
I do, but okay, when I say action, I mean modern, like
Oh, okay.
whatever that weird random date that I picked for no reason was, because I don't know enough about the genre, like 2005 or 2006 up to now, like all those action films.
I mean, heck, you could say it was as early as, like, when was the Jackal? Because that one's kind of similar.
97. You're right. I'd say
Like, it's
mid
as far
90s,
like
mid to
it's
late
as
90s.
far back as the late 90s. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they kind of hit a groove that they seem to like in the, like, mid 2000s, where it didn't have that weird early 2000s kind of pseudo experimental phase where it's just like, okay, here's the balance of budget, character actor, and good marketing, and here we go.
It's probably because that was like, the 90s were peak grunge, hardcore, sort of rebellion type. I mean, that type of rebellion. I think it sort of ingrained itself into our culture, even to that extent, and that's produced so many of these. So it is an action sci-fi, this 90 version. It's way more sci-fi than the 2012 one is.
Oh, yeah, by leaps and bounds.
Just the way it's set up. And I think that helps. Another thing that helps is I'm a sucker for puppetry. I love most any movie that has puppetry in it.
True.
I prefer that over CGI, but I also prefer that over, I don't know, things drawn on the cells of the movie.
Right. I think
that's my favorite type of special effects, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I did like the mutant peoples of the 90 version. It was pretty cool to have them. It also made sense why, like, I'm sure a lot of people know about the famous 3-boobed chick in the original 90 version, which there it at least made sense because a whole lot of people, like, mutated. But then they just bring her back for the 2012 version, like, with no explanation.
One's like, look, 3 breasts you like? And he walks away, he's like, yeah.
Which that actually brings up a good segue into the difference in main characters, which really should be mentioned because we have not given enough time to Mr. Schwarzenegger on this one, because it's, my God, what a character actor. And the character is himself, granted, but it's He is interesting, and I
You
can't
know,
tell whether I love him or hate him in this role.
we'll talk about someone who's ingrained themselves into pop culture. Like, he has
Yeah,
so many quotable lines from films that you can say in a conversation without ever actually having seen the movie.
yeah,
I
exactly.
This is the first time I ever saw Total Recall, and I have said, "Give these people air" a million times.
I've said "Get your ass to Mars" a million times.
See, it's easy.
He's just. I think there's a weird, almost charming quality to him that you don't see in a lot of other action movie characters. I think it's just because he. I don't know whether it's. I don't think it's his accent specifically, but I think unlike a lot of action characters, he tends to like have a genuine smile a lot of times. Like he's actually seems like a somewhat happy character in a lot of these situations. And he has or like variations in his voice and all sorts of things. He actually seems very likable despite being this mountain of a man. Which even then he doesn't seem that big. He's just very muscly, you know.
Right.
It's just and then you see versus something like Colin Farrell for the 2012 version, which I think overall he plays the better consistent character, but he's just kind of dull all otherwise. Like, he seems like I've seen him in other movies where he's able to kind of stretch his, himself as a character more, but in this one he just kind of sticks to it, like kind of sticks to the guns of generic action character, which I think is kind of meant to be the point, but still.
Mm-hmm. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm not gonna keep you from bashing on it.
Mm-hmm.
um, he's dull, and if I don't have to be honest anymore. Everything I'm saying is honest. I found most of the cast dull,
Yeah.
to be frank.
Yeah. To be
I guess.
completely fair with it. The one moderate saving grace for characters, and this is barely, was like Bryan Cranston, if only as Cohagen, if only because he just has a good voice. I think he's just able to project himself very well. But otherwise, even then, he didn't really do a lot.
Yeah, he could be in the Total Recall animated feature coming up.
What?
It's a joke.
Oh,
Anyways.
Jacob, there's so much weird crap coming out nowadays. I have to at least believe it's plausible. Like, my God. Like, we have, like, Detective Pikachu is happening. Anything can happen.
I am sick and tired of your Detective Pikachu bashing.
I'm not necessarily saying it'll be bad. It's just weird. It is definitely weird.
Okay, so
Anyway.
speaking of characters, let's talk about the funny lady in the big yellow suit.
Oh, yeah, that thing. Where Quaid is in the 1990 version, at least, Quaid is disguised as this larger lady in this yellow dress and everything to sneak through security. It's that's a scene and a half there.
I think that is the better version of the three-breasted chick reference in the 2012 version.
Oh, yeah,
I think that's the way that she should have been handled, where they have her on screen. It's obviously a different actress, but she looks down to the outfit exactly like whatever you want to call him, Quaid, Hauser, whatever.
Yeah.
Quaid's disguise.
At least in the original movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is that she appears identical and is saying the same dialogue in the same setup in the 2012 version, only to reveal that this Quaid is disguised as a completely different person going through security in a different area. So it's a mislead for anyone who's seen the film before or seen the original film before.
Yeah, actually, I do like that. I saw that at first and I was kind of just like, haha, and then just kind of moved on. Yeah, I didn't really think about it that much.
Yeah, I think that's how something like the Three-Breasted Woman or anything else that they may have wanted to do, I think that's how that should be handled in a remake or a reboot, is to go ahead and give the audience something like that, but to subvert what they're expecting with it. Because to a new viewer that hasn't seen the original, it doesn't mean much one way or the other. It's just a reference that they probably won't understand.
Yeah.
But to a different viewer, one is a reference, and then the other is, I don't know, it's playing with expectations, so it gets the audience more engaged. That was probably the most engaged I was during the entirety of the movie.
Wow.
Was that one 10-second scene.
Yeah. Yeah, there was really no sense of tension in the newer version.
Right. And I mean,
I never felt like there was danger.
yeah. You sort of run the risk of that with reboots and remakes as well. Just because if you've seen the original material, and I always watch these in chronological order, it's just the way I do it. I mean, it's kind of unfair because you sort of know what's going to happen if it plays by those same rules. Now, we have covered various remakes on here that do follow different story paths or do things differently, especially with the endings.
Yes.
But in the case of something like this, it's not necessarily the movie's fault for not having that tension there, for me, because I've seen the original film. If it had chose to do slightly different things, not just mixing up the settings or whatever, but if it had different story beats, or it played with audience expectation more, and I feel like I'm going a bit deeper into this than just Total Recall. I feel like that's probably an indictment of any remake, but
right.
I'm only thinking about it with this one probably because I don't want to say I didn't have a good time watching it, because it's not like it was a horrible traumatic experience. I was just very bored.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why I'm thinking about this so much.
You're just trying to find something.
I really am trying to find something. I remember everything that happens in the movie, but I'm having a hard time thinking of something good to say about it. Not because it offended me or traumatized me or anything. It's just I can't think of anything it did that I didn't like better in the 90s version.
That's almost the worst kind of disliking a movie, when it's just boring, where there's nothing to really say about it that really offended you, but only because there wasn't anything that really made you stand up and cheer either. So,
yeah.
But it's like, it's not even just necessarily that it's a remake that you've seen before. It's just like the style that everything was framed, where there was never really real moments of levity that weren't also like moments that were more somber, like the moment where he's playing the piano and everything. Like, yeah, that's a break from the action, but it's still kind of slow and soft and kind of not really bringing any kind of light to the situation. It's more just everything is kind of on this consistent slow burn. So that even the moment where it's like, the inevitable betrayal at the end, where it turns out, he was a secret agent all along, or was like planning this all along, it doesn't feel like unexpected, Like, it just feels like, oh, of course there's going to be a betrayal because we have to go into the third act. Versus it showing up in the 1990 version, it set up the third act before having the betrayal. It said, we have to get to this giant machine that can make all of Earth livable, versus... And then the betrayal happens, where it's like, okay, this was an extra wrench thrown into the works of what was already going to be the continuation of the story. Versus the 2012 version, where it kind of set up this really weak idea that there's a massive shutdown code for all these police robots, which it makes a big point of them as a plot point, but we don't see them that much. Like, they don't feel like that big of a threat. Like, they're present, but the biggest threats are always other humans. And then at the very end, there's also this moment where there's some like elite police robot that's like the final boss, instead of like Cohagen or something, because Cohagen's clearly not like a warrior in this one. And so it just seems like it's trying to set up this threat of these guys, but it never actually does. And so when the betrayal comes and it reveals there is no shutdown code, it doesn't feel like a surprise. It more feels like, okay, well, yeah, of course not. It's like, why would you need it in the first place? It didn't seem that bad. And so it just didn't really have that. Versus 1990 being like, okay, we have gone from, a resistance that barely has any ground to stand on to an actual fighting chance for the entirety of a planet. Where that's like, oh, that's actually a really big revelation. And then to have this basically messiah like character murdered and betrayed by a combination of Quaid and the Benny driver and the cab driver Benny, which there's a bit of a plot hole there where it's like, why wasn't he the secret agent? But whatever. So it sets it up like that's just the one example to say why it just felt boring comparatively. There's a lot of moments like that, but that's like the biggest one I can think of.
Yeah. I and I'm not a huge fan of them. I feel like there are more characters in the 1990 version.
There are definitely.
They're just not even just more interesting characters. There's just more characters, and they cut down on a lot of them in the 2012 for various reasons, whether they be plot related or it's like, oh well, we can condense them here. Like,
I think
there is no cab driver. It's not pertinent to the plot, so there's not like a Benny that they need.
Right, and then like Michael Ironside's character is replaced with the wife,
which I was such a big fan of. So in the 90s version, there's Michael Ironside's Richter alongside his wife. And then there's also Dr. Edgemar, especially in that one scene where the three of them are all trying to convince, well, mainly two of them, but Michael Ironside comes in later, trying to convince him that he's still in the recall machine.
Mm-hmm.
But they condense all the characters down into just the wife and Cohagen. It's just the two of them, basically, and then an army of robots.
Yeah, instead of all these like other goons.
Yeah, so there's a great deal of condensing, and I'm not sure why. I think they did it because I don't really think it helped anything.
I think like it helped a little, but I think they went a little too far with it. Like I was okay with the wife character being added to the number 2 bad guy character, because it seemed like she was just kind of brushed over in the original, which I actually think Sharon Stone was really good in this role, because she seems a bit more realistic. Like she takes her role as the pretend wife seriously, or the supposed pretend wife seriously, and like the first scenes we have with them, they're being like a very real couple, and then when the shoe drops about her being fake, she's actually very real about it. It's like, look man, I only met you like 6 weeks ago, I'm just trying to do my job properly. And like they actually have like a brief like sit down like and a genuine talk about it for a moment before things hit the fan again, versus I forget her name really quick, hang on, Kate Beckinsale's character as the wife in 2012 version, just kind of being stone cold psychotic badass, just like from the moment the shoe drops, where it just kind of loses all sense of relatability, where it's like, all right, this is a little weird.
Yeah,
but I still think it was kind of good to condense the characters a little bit in that case, if only because it made things a bit more straightforward.
I guess that's fair. If it helped anything, it made the story more concise. But if we're being fair, they cut down a lot in terms of settings, so transportation isn't as big a deal. There's with it being geopolitical or just political or what have you, it's a bit more understandable, I think, than all of the. Well, I don't know about that, because even though it's like air and biodomes on Mars, it's still very corporate. So I feel like that's fairly understandable too.
Yeah.
It's just in a more bizarre setting.
Right, and a more like extreme case where it's like, for as much as you can argue about there being corporate entities on Earth now, they don't literally have a monopoly on the air.
They aren't a strange Mr. Burns man that lives out in outer space, controlling oxygen.
And they never really established that guy's power that much. They just kind of give you like, look, here's your overarching bad guy corporate type. There's your lot.
Right.
And then versus like it tries to set up Bryan Cranston as like the Chancellor character a little bit more, Not a whole lot, granted, but a bit more.
I guess the main thing I was trying to get at with the characters is that I wasn't a huge fan of the condensing because they also got, granted, it's because of the actors that were in the roles, but they got rid of two of my favorite roles in the movie, that being Dr. Edgemar and Richter.
Yeah,
Neither of those characters appeared in the 2012 version, and they were probably my favorites from the original.
I think I mostly just like Richter's character because it's Michael Ironside.
Really?
Yeah, like
I
I
like
think
Michael
other
Ironside.
I think otherwise I think the character is kind of generic. Like it's just like basic side henchman, which like there's a bit of added tension with it, like having um, Sharon Stone's character actually be his own girlfriend or whatever, which that adds a bit of something to it, but not a whole lot.
I think it adds a lot.
Um, but like otherwise, I think he's a pretty straightforward, just like you know, bad guy character, and I just kind of like Michael Ironside as this guy. Not for
I
any
mean,
particular,
that's
not for any particular reason. Just
I mean that's fair. I do like Michael Ironside a lot
mhm.
as an actor, at least in the things that I've seen him in. So while I do partially agree with you that he is pretty tropish bad guy, I think that the wife thing does wife girlfriend whatever does add quite a bit to that relatability there. Not even relatability, but it makes him more human.
Yeah, that's true.
That made me relate with him more on a human level. So I actually ended up feeling for him more. But more so than the role, like I was saying, I rather than liking those two roles being my favorite, the two actors in those roles were some of my favorite, and I think that's why I held on to them so much, and that probably why it felt more I felt more of a sting for having those roles removed, not even because of the characters themselves, but because my memories of memories being like a few days before I saw this one, but the memories I had of the actors playing them.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar, I guess. I think for the most part, I kind of looked past a lot of the characters in general, which I think I do with a lot of movies. I just kind of focus more on the story, which
Mm,
I know is driven by the characters, obviously, but still. I think
right,
also for both these movies were very visual based. I think I'm more focused on that.
right.
But
Well, well, the more
I
and
still
more
did enjoy the characters though.
right, the more and more I get into actors and actresses and different aspects of Hollywood, the more of the seams I start to see while watching a movie. So it's rare that I relate to a character anymore, or just, I guess, get engrossed in a character anymore. I'm usually paying more attention to who is in the role, especially if I'm starting to recognize them or they're gaining more acclaim. It's like, oh well, they were in a couple of movies recently, so
Mm,
I sort of feel the same way, just possibly in some different aspects.
yeah, and this is actually another talking point I wanted to bring up. It's like while we're on the subject of um, like characters specifically, did you think that the in the 2012 version, the wife character and the love interest character looked damn near exactly the same?
Yes, I
Oh
was.
my god, that is the biggest case of same face I've seen in a long time. It's just both like sort of slim, bony, long-haired brunette woman character. Like I like if it weren't for the English accent, like with the wife, it would have been basically the same, and
So
I hated it. Like I loved Melina in the original, which I forget her name again.
Ticotin.
Rachel Ticotin. I loved her character. I thought she was a really cool role. Like she's just straight up pretty. Like it wasn't even necessarily like the stereotype of badass no bullshit um, female character that almost seems more stereotypical than the damsel in distress type. And she actually just seemed a lot more human versus Jessica Biel in the 2012 version. I just kind of snooze fest with her.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm definitely not trying to harp on this. I'm just bringing it up because it sort of pertains to
Oh,
this
go ahead.
particular conversation. Part of this is because I was bored. while watching, so I was having a harder time paying attention. But I was thoroughly confused at several what I would consider key points in the movie because those two actresses looked very similar to me. It's the same problem I had with The Departed, trying to keep Matt Damon and what is his name? All of those three guys separated in my mind. Yeah, Mark Wahlberg and then the other guy.
And then Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes. It's the same thing that I had there.
Yeah.
Where I just kept getting confused because I was like, wait, isn't she supposed to be hunting him down? I don't know.
Yeah, it was just kind of lame with that one. There was a lot of, and this actually goes into the big point that I have about the 2012 version, which, if you don't mind me going into it.
No, that's fine. Hopefully it's something good. I
think so. Okay. I mean, it's gonna be about bashing. Trust me.
Okay.
I have no problem with it. There's a whole lot of just straight up whitewashing with the 2012 version, where it's like it took the original character who was, I think she was maybe South American, Miss Tickerton.
Yeah.
And
I'd say so.
And turning into the whole same face white lady thing, and then with the fact of the entire plot just goes from disenfranchised people, many of which are of color, on Mars, having to deal with all these poor living conditions that had a very real parallel to the third world and to various third world countries, and actually had a lot of respect, at least a little decent amount of respect for it, to the 2012 version, where it made a distinct point that the entirety of the planet was basically wiped out from war, except for the two biggest centers of Caucasian people on the planet. And it not only does that, it also makes a point of having all the people in Australia, I mentioned it earlier, that there's a whole lot of just straight up Asian, Chinese, Japanese influences in the Australian portion. Why on earth did they not make the two countries that survived America and China? They're on opposite sides of the world. That's always been the joke. If you dig a hole deep enough, you'll go to China. Why didn't they do that so they could still have all these cultural references that they clearly wanted to take advantage of, but instead they decide to go with two locations that have had an incredibly bad history with xenophobia and this sort of thing? It just paints a really, really creepy picture.
I guess it is a little easier to write a story about a geographic invasion of a country if it's primarily Caucasians that inhabit that country.
I mean, yeah, but it's still being committed by Caucasian people, and it's still already made the point of the entire planet was already wiped out by presumably Caucasian people. At least the only people who survived were the Caucasian people.
You are completely forgetting about Mr. Bokeem Woodbine.
Oh, pardon me.
Harry.
The one main non-white character in the film, other than John Cho, and even he was only there for technically one scene.
Was that the Asian guy that was hired for
John Cho? He was the guy who was the tech at Recall. He's the guy who hooked Quaid up to the machine.
Oh, I was thinking about the guy
with the bleached hair.
Yeah. Sulu. New Sulu.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about wasn't the guy that they brought in to the robot factory? The robot factory.
At
the very beginning, wasn't he Asian?
Yeah, he was as well. I forget. Yeah, I know that was name because he's in a couple of things.
Yeah, well, that was an even shorter scene than John Cho's. It was primarily for a joke, but I completely forgot about John Cho. I was thinking of a different Asian man.
Yeah. Okay, what the two that were in the film.
Right. So we got three. We got three individuals.
And obviously that's fine. I'm not faulting the movie for specifically for not having people like people of color represented. It's more just the very blatant, or at least like, overlooked message that it's bringing across here, it's really dark and really kind of creepy, especially in a world that's like a modern world that we have that has such a big issue with xenophobia these days. To have that big of an exclamation point on this entire plot line, it's just when I first saw that, I didn't notice it the first time I watched it through. Like, I watched it ago, like years ago when it was on HBO. But then watching it back through, I really started thinking about it, like even a little bit, and it just got to me. I was like, this is really fucked.
Meanwhile, the 90s version, the main character is of ethnic origins. So.
Yeah, like straight up, he's Austrian. Like, holy shit. And like every main bad guy is a white person. Or at least an American white person.
He's fighting the good fight.
Yeah. And like all the other people, like, well, okay, I say that there is the one, like there is the traitor character, Benny.
Yeah.
Which I still think was kind of a weird plot hole, and they could have done something else to get that point across, but it's...
I thought you meant very weird, like, character choice, and I was like, yeah, kind of. He's very, like, stereotypical...
Oh, yeah, he definitely is.
Inner city black man.
Which I guess... Again, may have been the point. Like, he was trying to come across that way to not reveal himself.
True, because he does break that facade. He's like, I don't even have any kids.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, like, it's, and I still think they could have brainwashed him and sent him in. Since he was a mutant, he would have been accepted a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And that would have been pretty easy. Like, they found the base basically immediately. So.
But he wasn't Cohagen's best friend, who he would willingly put in danger. Time and time again.
So that was like on a plot point that one always kind of rubbed me.
Okay, so.
But yeah, that was my big point that I wanted to bring across. I always thought it was a little weird and kind of like very white power feeling. I was like, ugh, maybe should have thought about that one a bit more, folks.
Before we start to bring this to a close, I have to ask you.
Yeah.
Because I personally do not, but I feel like we should get some of that in here. Do you have something nice to say about the 2012 version? Because I
have plenty nice to say. I'm
do you want to real quick? Because I have nothing.
It's pretty much all I've said before. Like, I think it's more consistent of a film. I think it doesn't take advantage of the concept as much as it does in the 90 version, but it at least keeps a consistent feeling throughout. Like, it's not like really campy. Like, the 90s version is very, very campy. It's hard to look past that. But I love the style a lot. Like, I'm a sucker for those kind of like creative, sci-fi cities and that sort of setup. I think it could have done more with it. I think it overshadowed, like, I think it didn't develop the whole synthetic police force thing as much as it could have. But it's mostly just the visual stuff, and I just think as a quality film, it's a bit better. I mean, like, when I say quality film, I think just its overall pieces make what would be not necessarily a great picture, but it's still a picture versus what appears to just kind of be a mess of the 90 version. But I think there's a lot to like about it. But to do that, you have to look past the very bland nature of it. Like, it's all the garnish of it that I enjoy a lot more than the meat itself. And so it's just, if you take away all those bits, it just becomes a bland action flick, and I do not care for that sort of thing at all. So it's only through that it kind of has a saving grace.
Right.
But even when I say that, I'm still conflicted to say which one I would prefer of the two movies.
I guess when I get right down to it, I really do prefer style and sort of the artisticness of the movie as a whole, not even necessarily its components, like lighting and the cinematography specifically. Like, even though I don't think that those were particularly well done in the 2012 version either, personally. Yeah. I like the campy nature of it, of the 90s version. I like the feel. I like the designs of the sets, I like the puppetry. I think that's the kind of stuff that I tend to hold above all else if I'm looking into it, because I tend to enjoy that more. And if I'm not enjoying a movie that I'm watching, then I can't recommend it regardless of what it does.
Yeah.
Because I have to be able to enjoy it first.
And that is a really good couple of points, and that's probably what'll end up leaning me over more towards its side. It definitely is like, it is the kind of it's a situation where I had to bring it down to, if I saw both these movies on TV at the same time, which one would I stick to? I would definitely stick to the 90 version because it's just more enjoyable. I had more fun with it.
Right.
It's like, because that's ultimately like that at the end of the day, we watch movies so we can enjoy ourselves to one degree or another. Like, what your form of enjoyment might be different, but there is a baseline of films that's just like, yes, this is fun. Like, I'm watching this because I want to have fun. And I think a lot of times, like, a lot of people can kind of look past that. This is the case where, yeah, it's weird, it's campy, but it's fun. I love it. You know, well, love is a strong word. I like it a lot.
I'm not trying to poison your mind, by the way. I don't want to.
Oh yeah, no. It did. Oh, don't worry. It's just like it was. I was just very conflicted between all my points. That, you know, it's hard to. I definitely can't say I dislike the 2012 version. It is still a decent film. It is by no means bad. It's just boring. You know.
Mm-hmm. Which is the baddest of all in my book.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of shows our hands which ones we prefer in that regard.
Yeah, I don't even think we need to talk about it. I
do have a couple like replacement ones, at least. Well, it's not. Okay. They are. I gotta say, as a disclaimer, I couldn't think of any particular movies for this one, but I did think of 2 TV shows, or shows in general. The first one is, if you want that kind of cohesive sci-fi city and sci-fi kind of underworld style, it's the show Altered Carbon on Netflix.
Which you've mentioned before on this show.
I have indeed. Which the book is better, but the show is very good for the visual aspect. And then for the kind of questioning reality, kind of like pseudo sci-fi, kind of like deceptive reality sort of deal, Westworld, which is fantastic, and I still haven't seen the second season.
Okay,
but
cool.
I think it's really good.
Everyone go out and watch the Westworld movie, by the way.
Oh yeah, I forgot there was a movie.
Already.
Yeah, forgot about that. I have not seen that one, but I'm sure it's good too.
I didn't think about what to recommend for this week. I don't know, Event Horizon?
No, God.
Go out and watch a sci-fi movie. I really like that. It's like if Hellraiser were a science fiction film.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Also Sunshine. That one's a little weird, but I like it.
What's Sunshine? You don't have to explain the whole plot, but...
It basically, it's like the sun, it has like some weird chemical reaction going on with it, and so it's only half the sun is actually shining. It is actually able to produce light and heat, and so every time it orbits back around, the entire world's in darkness. So they have to send a ship out to like send a catalyst into the sun to fix it. And so it's just kind of the plot of these characters on this spaceship, as like this solar sailor spaceship, as they're going towards it. It's very visually stunning and everything. It's a lot of it has to do with like light and everything, and there's like some thriller aspects to it.
Oh, okay. In similar vein to Sunshine, everyone go out and watch the episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog that has almost the exact same plot.
Oh, cool. For all we know, it might be parodied off of that.
Maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember when Sunshine came out. I think it was like early 90s. No, wait, no, it was like mid-90s.
I think it was the sun is powered by a light bulb that's starting to go out, so they have to change the light bulb. But it's mainly about a parasite that is loose on the ship. I'm all but certain that's a parody of Sunshine. It sounds incredibly similar because there is a twist later on that kind of sucks, and it's very similar. Oh, okay.
That's sort of a spoiler, but it's sort of not.
Wow, this is astonishing. I have to watch this movie. I may have just learned an entire episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog was based on this movie
It could very well
that
be.
I've never heard of.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's got Cillian Murphy in it.
I love Cillian Murphy.
Yeah,
Scarecrow.
he's the main character.
And Breakfasts on Pluto or whatever it's called. Okay.
Yeah. And Peaky Blinders, which another show. You might like it, but it's kind of political.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not political. It's like historical. It's very British.
All right, well.
Anyway, I've
talked
gotten
a
away from
lot.
myself. Yeah.
We sort of got invested in our own thing there. I want to suggest some more things.
Let's just go down the list. So lots of things we'll recommend.
Twin Peaks is a really good sci-fi.
Yeah. Cool Hand Luke. Really good older film.
I love that science fiction film.
Yeah. What?
Citizen Kane. Don't watch Citizen Kane. It's boring. Okay.
Trip to the Moon. Talking about
That
George
had a lot of
John earlier.
suspense.
Yeah.
That movie has a lot of suspense. I am like scared of getting stuff stuck in my eye.
Anyway, do we want to go down with the social links?
Okay. Take them at the socials. It Remade on Twitter. Isn't that the only social? I mean, we have the website. They Remade It.
I say social links as a general.
Okay.
Just like the general, the places you can find us.
The They Remade It website is an archive that also has like links to all the different podcast hosts, not hosts, but areas that you can find us on. The host is Anchor, but we are on Google Play and Stitcher and iTunes and Podmatic, Podbay, a bunch of stuff like that took me quite a while to apply to. And
so you guys better damn well appreciate it.
That took me a whole hour to do.
This man took an hour out of his busy day to bring you quality content to as many places as possible.
I might have done that at work.
He took off work to do this for you.
To do that.
You better be appreciative.
They remade it at gmail.com as well. And if you like it, give us a review, mainly on iTunes. That's what generally helps. Even if you don't listen to it on iTunes, you should probably be rating it on iTunes, because that is where the reviews for podcasts are. Those are the reviews that sites and analytics pick up on, because it is like the place to listen to podcasts still for some reason, even though the design is pretty terrible.
It's just because it's a default on the iPhones, I guess.
Yeah. So if you like us, leave a rating and a review on there. If you don't like us, also leave us a 5-star review on there. And feel free, comments, whatever you like. It all helps. All that'll help.
Mm-hmm.
Every little bit helps. And if you click that subscribe button today and download our podcasts, then we will cure muscular dystrophy. Finally.
Well, I have a lot more work ahead of me then.
we will do what Mr. Lewis tried to for all those years.
We're speaking to you specifically, Spencer.
Spencer.
I don't know if there's a Spencer listening, but if there is one, it would be really freaky.
I bet he got shook. He was like, they were talking to me.
Yeah. It's all for you, buddy.
Speaking of Lewis, we should do a special episode on The Day the Clown Cried when it finally comes out.
All right.
Remember when we were talking about doing a special episode for Ready Player One once you finally saw it?
I still haven't seen it. I should get on that.
I wonder why.
Yeah. I should get on that. Or maybe
Watch
not. Who cares?
Movie. Watch that movie. Okay. That's it. We're done. I'm
right.
shutting it
All
down.
right. Yeah, we don't want to get into Ready Player One talk again.
Jerry, I love you wherever you are in space. I don't mean all the mean things I say. People have said a lot about you, but I believe you were a kind soul.
And Spencer, still talking to you specifically. Subscribe. It's all for the muscle. It's for the muscle dystrophy. If you don't do it, everyone will die. of missile dystrophy.
Oh my god.
This has gotten away from me. I'm going to
It's
shut it down
true.
now. Okay. As always, I'm your host, Stuart, who doesn't
And
know
I'm
when to shut
Jacob.
up. And that's Jacob.
Who doesn't have any afflictions.
Yet. I don't know what I'm on about. Have a good night, everybody.
Now this is the plan. Get your ass to Mars.